Naresh Bhatt was denied bond for a second time today, and we learned a lot. Let's talk about it. Just at home, I'm eating dinner, and I'm going to go through all of my notes on this, and this is the order in which it happened. I'll do more videos tomorrow to kind of drill down on some of these topics, but today was wild. The hearing was almost 3 hours long. The courtroom was so packed that they had to turn people away. Thankfully, I got a seat. The defense started at the bond hearing, and their big argument was the arrest warrant and the fact that the defense is contending that Detective Ventura perjured herself when she said that there was evidence that the body was dragged out of the house. She did admit that there was not evidence that it was dragged out of the house, just that it was dragged from room to room. So Mr. Ben Alverham was trying to get the entire thing basically thrown out based on that. He said again that the lead detective went to the magistrate with a typed up probable cause affidavit, and the magistrate basically said, I need more. You got to add something about how the body got out of the house. So that's why she hand wrote that portion in. And again, I just did a video yesterday about this, but this is what I'm referring to. On August 26th, she admits that there was no evidence. He claims that she lied to the magistrate. And the captain wrote a letter basically stating this on September 4th, but it was not turned over until after the hearing, about 10 to 15 minutes after the hearing on September 16th. The magistrate was not going to issue the arrest warrant until the lie was put in, according to Naresh's lawyer. Then he went and talked about the welfare check on August 2nd, said that the interaction was about 15 minutes long. And during this, police asked Naresh where his wife was, and he said New York or Texas. He then talked about selling house and separating, and then they did not talk about filing a missing persons report at all during that welfare check. Naresh said that Mamta left without communications. He called 911 on the night of 8/4, and then the missing persons report was officially filed on August 5th. And he brings up the Mamta's phone pinging and cleaning supplies and inconsistent statements, and he basically saying that the prosecution was making more of that than it was. Naresh said that Mamta left on Tuesday or Wednesday. She had her phone and then destroyed her phone. Then Ben Alverham was trying to say that that was like a translation issue and that Mamta did have many phones at one point, but he was trying to kind of downplay that. He then brought up the February police incident when the police were called to the house. He said that there was no arrest and that basically the police got there. Mamta did not accuse Naresh of abusing her and said that she had just asked for her documents, like her passport, green card, things like that. Naresh gave it to her. The police left. Because the Virginia Code requires arrest if any physical touching were to have occurred, but there is none according to the interviews. He then addressed the knives that Naresh bought, and he said, listen, those are just knives. You know, they're cheap Walmart knives. They're $10 to $15. And anybody could buy those. They don't mean anything. And then he brought up cadaver dogs at the house. And he's like, listen, you know, if they had brought cadaver dogs and the cadaver dogs had found anything, we would know about it. He then said that they were already talking about selling the house before Mamta went missing. So you can't use that as proof that he's a flight risk. He also brought up the Tesla data and said if they had any indication that the Tesla was parked somewhere suspicious, that they would have said that by now. And so there's nothing incriminating in the Tesla data. He then offered Naresh's passport, GPS, as, you know, just a way to get him on bond. Then he talked about Blue Star, and he said he was trying to, you know, take down the importance of that as well. Blue Star technology can locate blood that's diluted to 100,000 parts, meaning that if you have a gallon of water and you put 1 drop of blood in it and then use Blue Star, it'll appear as though the entire bucket is filled with blood when it's really just a drop that's diluted in a gallon of water. So he was saying that the pictures make it look like there's a lot of blood, but it's really not that much blood. But then he brought up cleaning, made it look like it was more blood than it was. Then he talked about you can't accuse somebody of concealing a body when you haven't produced the body or body parts. The judge did push back on this and says that you don't need body parts. And then she brought up another case in which a conviction was upheld for homicide and concealing a dead body in which they did not have a body or body parts. We actually had a recess so she could find that case, but then she couldn't find it. So that was a whole thing. But Ben Alverham brought up the fact that the Commonwealth's attorney, Ms. Ashworth, said on August 22nd that they didn't know if Mamta was dead or alive. And he said, how can you keep my client in jail for concealing a dead body when the Commonwealth's attorney went out and said, you don't even know she's dead? He said then, quote, they don't have enough. What got him arrested was a false statement by a police officer in a criminal complaint, end quote. The judge pushed back and said the only issue is not did the magistrate make a mistake, it's is he a flight risk or danger today. She said the weight of the evidence is important and whether the magistrate has issued a warrant, quote, is a ship that has sailed and should have been addressed at a preliminary or a grand jury, but the defense waived both. Mr. Ben Alverham then said that the prosecution knew that the statement was false on September 4th, but did not present it. And he asked if anything else has been developed between August 22nd and today that would overcome what the magistrate did. The judge disagreed with his assessment. Then Ben Alverham said he could go back to the house if he was released on bond, but he probably wouldn't. And that he served in the Army for 7 years honorably. He had security clearances. He's a U.S. citizen with no previous charges. So that is what the defense had to say. I'm already almost at my 10-minute limit here, so I'm going to have to make a part 2 on this, all right? And that's when we're going to get into what the prosecution said and the horrifying things that we learned.